YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, jumping into another Total War Warhammer 2 online replay. This time we're going to have Lizardmen. I haven't played Lizardmen in a while, and I didn't do my typical double Dino or double Carnosaur build. Did something different. So I've got a Skink Priest of Heavens on an Ancient Stegodon. I do have Kroq-Gar because this guy's just almost too good to pass up. I've got 4 Saurus Warriors with shields. 1 Saurus Spear with shields on either flank, so 2 in total. 1 Feral Cold One, and then in the back I've got 2 Chameleon Skinks, which are skirmishers who can fire whilst moving and in a 360-degree arc with poisonous missiles, and they also have a poisonous melee attack. They're going to really be my only defense against the High Elves' major strength, which is dragons. Now, these skirmishers don't necessarily do a ton of armor-piercing damage, but I've noticed that for whatever reason, they do pretty good against dragons over time. So I lack range, and my infantry does not have the hitting power to stand against White Lions or Phoenix Guard. So that's the weaknesses of my army. I have 2 very tanky heroes who are both quite capable of inflicting damage, both in different ways. Kroq-Gar is an anti-lord or anti-large, and then the Ancient Stegodon is anti-infantry. High Elves have things that definitely help them against the Lizardmen. Dragons can be very useful against the Lizardmen. Their ranged units, however, are going to struggle because the Lizardmen units are so heavily armored. Now look, the High Elf Princess approaches, trying to do a little early skirmishing, which would otherwise be quite easy for had I not brought the Chameleon Skinks. But you can see these guys are fast. They're not as fast as a dragon, but when they poison her, it makes it very difficult for the princess to get out of range. She can do it, but it's going to take time, and she's going to take damage. How much damage? A lot. So my 2 skink skirmishers are already paying huge dividends. Now, I thought my player might have cavalry hidden. I'd kind of added up the cost, and it was pretty close, but I couldn't tell if he had cavalry hidden. He deployed way up here on the hill because he knew he would have a ranged advantage against the lizards. I could have done my solar engine build against this, and it would have worked very well. But, I mean, I've done that one before, and I wanted to try something different. So 4 White Lions up front, along with the Lore Master of Hoeth, who's got Spirit Leech amongst some of his other tools. Also Earthblood, so Earthblood and Spirit Leech. 2 Phoenix Guards in the back, and the White Lions, like I said, so my infantry will get beat head-on. His archers, though, don't have a lot of good targets. I have shielded infantry and heavily armored dinosaurs. I have 2 Chameleon Skinks, which are spread out and have 30% missile resistance. Now, his lord decided to dive down and try and beat the Chameleon Skinks in melee. This is also a bad idea because you continue to be poisoned by their melee attack. So at this point, his lord has been almost entirely killed by my Chameleon Skinks. And right now, I have her down to 469 hit points. She is routing back towards her line, and the Lore Master does have a healing spell that can pull her back into the fight. So I am desperately pursuing, though there is the risk of me running into hidden cavalry, which isn't real, of course. At the time, I was like, you know what, I'll bring Kroq-Gar along if the hidden cavalry pounces. And right before I could kill his lord, she gets a healing spell from the Lore Master, and she's going to survive, so still really worthwhile effort here on the part of the Chameleon Skinks. This is the type of thing that they're good for. They can slow down enemy cavalry to the point of making it very useless if used properly, and they can really stop enemy flyers from having the type of mobility. What you have to be careful of is their range, but Chameleon Skinks have the stalk trait, and they can stay hidden, and if you use them intelligently, you can get a lot of kills with them. They are decent in melee because of their poison melee, but you've still got to be careful with them. You can't just throw them in. So I didn't want to run all the way across the map either. I am doing a little bit of running, but if I ran all the way across the map, that is enough distance and enough hills that my lizards would be quite tired. So what's the plan? How am I going to defeat the infantry here? I mean, we've done a good job against his lord. If he really wants to be very mobile, he can make his lord very difficult for me to get, so we'll see how that works. But yeah, the White Lions, if I combine the Stegodon and Kroq-Gar along with my Skink Priest of Heavens, he's got the Curse of the Midnight Wind, we can defeat the White Lions. We can do it at a price, but we can defeat them. The Phoenix Guard, on the other hand, are going to be difficult. The Wind Blast from my Skink Priest is going to be my main weapon and then I will have to use charging and Kroq-Gar's explosive ability to keep these guys unbalanced. So the goal here is we got to defeat the lions, use the feral cold ones to keep his archers under pressure, and hopefully keep the Phoenix Guard out of combat. His spearmen on the flanks should fall to my Saurus spearmen, or any cavalry that he had hidden would have been easy for me to try and fight with the Saurus spearmen. Let's fast forward to where the where the battle begins. So I move in through the woods. The woods are going to give me some cover from his archer fire and allow me to hit him on his flank. My opponent did not turn to face me here, which is rather strange. And he's using the abilities off his princess. He actually did a little bit of damage to one of my Saurus warriors rather than targeting my leadership, which is kind of what I expected. So again, here you can see his archers several volleys in. I mean, they are doing damage, but it's not just absolutely gruesome damage. My Skink skirmishers moving up behind my leadership in case his dragon wants to get close. And then again, you can see my feral cold ones moving in from that flank. Here comes the charge, so Kroq-Gar and the Stegodon are going to immediately charge in. Kroq-Gar actually ends up going all the way in through, which is great disruption, but he's going to get himself surrounded by Phoenix Guard. The Ancient Stegodon gets in and does what I need, which is tremendous damage to infantry. The Ancient Stegodon is extremely good versus infantry. A little bit of a mistake over here. I have my Chameleon Skinks on fire at will, and I shouldn't. I think I corrected it. Nice breath attack by my opponent here on the flank. Kills a ton of Saurus warriors. So very well placed attack, and he's going to flee back away from my Chameleon Skinks, and he's smart to do so, but he is going to catch a volley from them. And then Kroq-Gar has his Hand of the Gods ability as well, so I'm kind of waiting for the right moment to use that on his lord, who's gained significant hit points there. See the explosion from Kroq-Gar kind of breaks up the infantry right when his white lions were fleeing, and now my infantry moves on into the second line. He decides to come down here, and at this point it's got to be desperation. His princess has no chance and really shouldn't be fighting Kroq-Gar in melee, so I'm able to capitalize on this moment. His princess charged, Kroq-Gar fainted away, hit her with the Hand of the Gods, and then my Skink skirmishers are going to throw up a couple last volleys, and he's going to attempt to heal the princess, but it's too late. She routs, and there won't be any healing. Now, that said, the battle is definitely in my favor, but it's not over yet. There's a few white lions, and he's got this Phoenix Guard, which is going to be extremely tanky because my infantry are not particularly great against armor. So we do have to break his Phoenix Guard. I do have tools to do it if we play it right, so I use my Stegodon to try and clean up the flanks. The idea is to be able to surround the Phoenix Guard, which will help tear down their leadership so I don't have to fight them to the death. So we're going to use the Stegodon to clear that out. Kroq-Gar is going to kind of come over here and try and work this flank, get into the archers, sends the elves flying everywhere, and you can see that my feral cold ones were patient and able to tear down a lot of archers. Now we'll use charges from Kroq-Gar to inflict damage. We don't want to leave him in long-term combat against Phoenix Guard, but we can use his charges since we have the Phoenix Guard fixed with infantry. So we can use his charge to good effect. You can see even with those charges, the Phoenix Guard not taking a lot of damage from my units. And they might even be able to fight their way out of this encirclement over time if I didn't have my heroes and some spells. But now the Phoenix Guard's in a nice tight little ball here, and that should allow my Ancient Stegodon, yep, right there, to put a Wind Blast down. It did good damage. But again, Phoenix Guard, pretty tough. They're not going to fall apart from one spell. But now, the thing that's going to get my opponent is the power bar turning against him. I start pouncing on every unit that's not Phoenix Guard to try and get them out of the fight. So you can see here we've surrounded these guys. And I've got my Skink skirmish, or Chameleon Skinks up on the hill. I'm going to use them to poison the Phoenix Guard momentarily. And now my leadership is going to be used to try and get good charges. So here comes this Ancient Stegodon. He's got a bonus versus infantry plus armor piercing, so he's just what the doctor ordered versus Phoenix Guard. I'm going to come in with the next layer of infantry, cycle my leadership around. There's a heal spell coming up on his Phoenix Guard. Kroq-Gar is going to explode them all over the place. That makes them a little less viable. And they can't protect against charges as well. And at this point, it's just a matter of surrounding, dismantling, and killing the leadership. So my opponent played a defensive battle here. He definitely had me outmatched in terms of infantry. But his mistake with his lord early ended up being a critical mistake. He did have the units to try and protect his archers, but here's the challenge you're going to run into, is that an Ancient Stegodon, for instance, they can just plow through infantry units. You've got to have something else that can slow them down. Dragons can certainly do some damage to them. They but you come down on the ground and you got to face Kroq-Gar, and Kroq-Gar is a nasty piece of work in terms of being a good anti-large, anti-lord thing. Mostly if the lord is mounted, they do not want to fight Kroq-Gar. That's a general rule of thumb. Kroq-Gar has this damage resistance thing on him. He's extremely tanky. He has the Cold One ability where he can heal up. Other heroes around him have the Cold One ability that they can also use on Kroq-Gar. So again, Kroq-Gar is definitely not who you want to be fighting like that. So I don't disagree entirely with the way my opponent built his army here. He had infantry that were capable of defeating Saurus warriors. He needed that. But at the same time, the magic and the Skink Priest and the Stegodon, I mean, even though he had the right units, I was able to overcome it. So you can see, like, this unit here, this White Lions that stayed in combat for longer, did pretty good against my Saurus warriors. These ones that got caught by Kroq-Gar and the Stegodon, they got shut down. And then the Phoenix Guard, I mean, again, look at these guys. They still had most of their health left. I didn't kill them. I broke their leadership. So had his lord been alive and been able to stay safe initially from these chameleon skinks, his Phoenix Guard may have put up a much more vicious last stand. Same thing with the Lore Master. I don't know if he could have won in the end, but he certainly could have put up a lot heavier fight in the end of it. And just standard archers here, I get why you want the ranged units. They're important, but to me, part of the challenge with ranged units against the Lizardmen is it's really hard to keep those ranged units safe because it is very difficult to slow down dinosaurs, and you don't have any anti-large cavalry from the High Elves, so you have to rely on their infantry, and it gets tricky. So the Lizardmen and the High Elves are an interesting matchup in my mind. They both have some tools that the other one doesn't like, and I find them to be a curious matchup. I'm kind of curious what you all think. Do you think one faction has the edge, or do you think it's just kind of a matter of who picks what and how well they play? So, like I said, tell me what you think. Hope you all enjoyed this one. Appreciate MSI sponsoring the channel. By the way, I'm still doing a giveaway. I'll put a link in the description if you want to join it. I think all you have to do is be subscribed, and if you want to get some extra entries, go watch a couple of videos. That's just about it. You can go win yourself some computer parts. HeirofCarthage signing out. I will see you next time.